Hello there. Today I'm going to be talking about some things regarding Marvel Crisis Protocol that have been on my mind for the past few months. And instead of spreading it out into 3 short videos, I figure one medium-length one will do the job. My name is Nate, and welcome to the Gamers Guild. As the thumbnail suggests, I want to touch on 3 things that I think need to happen, change, or some combination of the two for the betterment of the game. Now, admittedly, AMG is in a bit of an interesting spot at the time of this release, because they just announced a brand new skirmish-style miniatures game last week with Star Wars Shatterpoint. Which, I won't lie, despite not knowing a lot about it, I am really excited for it because Star Wars is probably my second favorite IP behind only Marvel. And despite having a bunch of Legion stuff, it really just doesn't see the table that often. And I'm going off topic. I say all this because last week was also the 3rd anniversary of Marvel Crisis Protocol's release, and there hasn't been much love for that achievement. In some regards, this video could also then be seen as a state of the game 3 years in, but I don't think that's fair to AMG or MCP because as a whole this game is continuing to grow, I'm still enjoying it, and I'm constantly impressed with this community as I go to events in different states and meet more and more people. But the 3 things I want to talk about are still things I think are true, and I would like to see some changes surrounding them. So let's get into it. The first thing I want to talk about is what I think MCP needs, and that is some significant love in the Crisis department. The last Crisis cards we have gotten from AMG were back in February of this year, and since at this point we know Pyro and Blob aren't coming with a new one either, and Sabretooth and Wolverine aren't, then we aren't getting one next month. Which means it will have been 10 months at least since we have gotten any new Crisis cards. And in those past 10 months, we have had another Crisis card get banned, unfortunately. Now, the number of releases we have had in the past 10 months aren't as plentiful as what we have seen during those first 2 years, but it still wouldn't be unreasonable to have expected a couple of new Crisis cards. So, MCP needs a fresh injection of attention here. The Crisis selections have been a bit more minimalized also because of the 1.5 update, where Crisis cards are randomly selected. Because of this, instead of having a couple of situationally good Crisis cards, you need to make sure you have cards that you think you have at least even ground on, if not something slightly in your favor. To that end, I haven't seen any secures like Deadly Meteors in quite some time. Now, AMG have grown into a bit of a reputation for being silent until they are not, because we had no idea about the X-Men first coming until they revealed them, and then similarly with MCP 1.5. At this point, I think their silence is starting to speak for itself. I think the thing we need is probably in the works in the form of a Crisis pack that will be similar to the character card pack we got earlier this year, but for new Crisis cards. And really my big hope is that we are able to see maybe even revised versions of things like Panic Grips and Wakandan Herbs so that we get those extracts back into the pool, and also maybe a tweak to Legacy Virus so that it's a little less crazy and swingy, please. Now, regardless of any of those things actually happen, I do think at the very least AMG knows that there has been a drought of Crisis cards. So I really hope we get a Crisis card pack or something like that sooner than later, because I think it's one of the things that I would love to see as a great welcoming option for new players. Because at this point in the game's life, cherry-picking packs for Crisis cards isn't what new players should have to worry about. The second thing I want to talk about is the opposite of the first, what MCP doesn't need that we are getting anyways. And at the moment, unfortunately, the thing that is standing out is the new Rivals pack featuring Logan the Wolverine and Sabretooth Apex Predator. Now, this take is one that is very much a me take because I really like the idea of the previous Rival packs of Doc Ock and Spider-Man with new sculpts, some alt art tactic cards, Because even though it wasn't a product aimed at the everyday gamer who may have already had those characters from the core set, it still let those who love painting get a chance to do something really cool with a diorama. Collectors get to scratch the itch with some cool holographic character cards and the Alt-Art Tactic cards. And if you wanted the Rivals pack for whatever reason, just in general, awesome. But if you didn't have any interest in any of those things, then it was a more expensive box that you could easily skip without missing out on any new content. And now we have the opposite of that with the Rivals Panel Weapon X program that comes not with just 2 new characters, new tactic cards that old characters can use, but even a whole new affiliation. And instead of all of that being the price of a normal box set at $40, we get something that is 2.5 times that price, or the same price as the core set, because it also comes with a large terrain feature that probably really only belongs on a few kind of boards. If I had to guess, the Rivals pack with core set Spidey and Doc Ock didn't do as well as AMG/Asmodee had hoped, and they are hoping that by adding new content to this Rivals pack that they are able to sell more. To me though, this feels like a cash grab. And sure, at the end of the day, AMG is a company and they need to make money. And I also understand that they want to be able to tell these stories and pick out different iconic comic panels and make those play out with specific versions of those characters. But we already have examples of this that have been well received. Getting Amazing Spider-Man, the new Red Skull, not to mention Hulkbuster, are all great examples of duplicate characters. So if we had gotten Sabretooth Apex Predator and Logan the Wolverine and a new normal character expansion, and then gotten a Rivals pack down the road, or even at the same time with the foiled cards and Alt-Art Tactic cards, I don't think there would be anything to complain about. But as it stands, asking for $100, 2.5 times the normal asking price for a couple of characters, in this case 2 of the most well-known characters whose release felt pretty lackluster the first time, doesn't feel like the fix we need. Which brings me to the final thing I have been wanting to talk about for a while, what we want. To some of you, this might fall under what we need, and to a degree I agree with you, and that is another character balance adjustment, and probably more realistically, yearly character balance adjustments. When AMG first talked about the MCP 1.5, they gave the reason that we got these updates for the different characters was not just because of balance, but because they had the excuse of localization. But then when the 2022 card pack released, we didn't get all of the characters, just the ones that got changes. So whether they give us more character updates because they didn't print all of the characters in the new format, or whatever other reason, I do think that for the sake of both the casual and competitive players of this game, that we need these updates at least semi-regularly. There are characters that have once again begun to be a bit over the power curve for their threat level released since the update, or that had only been out for a bit before the update happened, and then there is one that is terrorizing tables at most levels of play. Not to mention, there are still characters who are also underperforming for their threat level, like that first Wolverine. Now, again, these could be things that AMG already has in the works, and they're just being silent until they aren't. However, I do hope that we get some sort of information about something like this soon, because I've been hearing from a few different places where there is apprehension of playing with or against certain models at the game night at the LGS because you are either apologizing for what is happening to your opponent or you are having to suffer on the other side of it. If that continues at game stores, then there will eventually be a downtick in the casual player base. As well, there are several lists that aren't able to be brought in the competitive scene because they don't have an answer for the kitty cat, which leaves a very narrow meta at the moment. So those are the 3 things that I have had on my mind for the past few months, and after continuing to get no new information about any of them, I feel it's only fair to share where my head is at. Here at the end of the video, I want to give shoutouts to the guild sponsors, Tritex Games and War Room Hobbies, which are both local gaming stores that host game nights, events, and the like, as well as offering MCP miniatures at a bit of a discount. If you shop from them, you can use the code TritexGGCP5 at checkout when shopping with Tritex, and it'll save you an extra 5% off of your MCP items. And the code MCP2022 will get you an extra 10% off of your order from War Room. So, if you want to get your hands on the Brotherhood's reinforcements and are shopping online anyways, consider using these stores and discounts to help out an LGS. However, if you are already shopping from your local gaming store, that's awesome. Keep supporting them. We understand and even appreciate it. But if you're still wanting a way to support the Guild's videos or podcast, check out our Patreon page. It isn't anything too crazy, but it does give you access to the Guild Hall Discord page and helps us to continue to work on new projects and content. And with that said, thank you to all of the members of the Guild Hall who are supporting what we do here and on the podcast. As always, if you've enjoyed my thoughts and are new to the channel, hit the subscribe button for a weekly dose of MCP content in the form of reviews, battle reports, and other MCP goodness. As well, you can find the Gamer Guild podcast on several different podcast apps and platforms. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, keep on gaming.